Good day, everyone. Figured I'd do a video showing how to rough in a plug-in. Something that a lot of handy homeowners are doing, whether renovating their basement or whatnot. Some tips and tricks to make it a little easier too along the way, especially if you're doing a few of them. Make things a little easier. I guess I should say, and be annoying like everybody else in every other video, please subscribe and like, but only do it if you find something in here useful. If not, don't worry about it. Okay, first off, you got your Loomex for us in Canada, or for the Romex for those in the US, stapled onto it. That's what you're going to mount these first. So one trick right off the bat is when mounting them for height, in Canada anyway, double check in the US, there's no regulation, there's no code on what height they should be at. There is for how many you have to put in a wall and how far apart they can be per se, but not height. So if there's anything else in the basement, obviously measure it and make sure you match it. But if you're doing the whole basement, what I always did that made it just real simple was hold your hammer and put it so that'll be 13 inches is this hammer, which is pretty much about approximate for a standard plug-in. Measure that, put it against the wall, hammer it in. I use screws for this, but if you're doing a bunch, use nails. It's cheaper. It's just this is what I had lying around. So that's a quick way to go around your house. Nice little trick when you're putting a bunch in, and just do quick measurements without having to take the time to get a tape measure out each time. So you've got it mounted. When you're mounting it, hopefully you can see this. Every box will have little notches on it for your depth of drywall. So know what drywall you're putting on. 3/8, 5/8. This one has notches. It's an older box that I found in the garage to use as an example. Some will have little tabs on the side, so it'll actually just push against it. You make sure you do that. If you don't take your time on putting this on now, it will cause you nothing but headaches. It'll look good and it's close enough, but nothing but headaches later once you're actually trying to finish it and putting your cover plate on. It'll be at an angle. It's going to be sticking out from the wall. So really make sure that you're level with the wood. You're I should say parallel, and your notches or your depth is correct. I can't stress that enough. It'll make it so much easier after. So when putting it in, you always have to have a bit of a stress loop at the top before you put it in. You're going to have a strap, something supporting it, about that far away. So what you do is you want about 6 inches inside the box approximately. So when measuring to put it in, I always, just to go quickly, grab at the bottom of the box, and then that's where you want to trim it up. So grab at the bottom, score your outside really well. And then because you got that ground wire in the middle protecting it, you can just go through. Pull it up a little bit. Unless you're hitting it dead on, of course. And then just run it down. Okay. So now you're gonna have little supports in there to hold it. Just got to pop out where you want it to go. Feed your wire in. Curl it a bit as you're putting it in, and then that just makes it slide out easier. Now when you put it in, you're going to want about 1/2 inch of your outer jacket showing. That's about what you want. You always want to have a bit, anytime you do any kind of connector or you're coming through a raceway, anything like that, you always want a little bit of jacket showing. And then just tighten it down until it's snug. Don't have to go crazy on it. You don't want to Wreck the wires on the inside. There's your loop that goes above. So there's no stress on the box. If something happens up here, it gets tugged or pulled. You got some room on your connection, and you can see how we got about 1/2 inch. Now what we're going to do, always do your ground first. See how, hopefully you can see this, on this box there's 2 screws in the back. Those are your ground screws. So you have to make sure this box is bonded. So you want to put your ground wire around one of those. So we're going to go around one of them and tighten it up. See a couple of notches on either side of the ground screw, just to make sure that it's held in there nice. So now with this one, I see that that's going to be a bit of an issue. I cut it a little short. It's enough to put on our box, but it's going to be a little tight for the ground, but we can make it work. So now you want to strip the ends. So now if you were, when you're doing your roughing, that is where you stop. Take the wires, tuck everything in so there's nothing exposed, and you move on to the next one. Now let's assume, okay, make sure nothing is damaged. Now the drywall comes, you're done. Now the drywall's on, now we want to finish it up. So now we're going to put on the plug-in, the receptacle. Where is it? Right here. Quick thing about the receptacle, if you look, you're going to see a long and a short prong. The short one is your hot, the long one is your neutral. So your hot's on this side. You can tell by the coloring, brass or silver, but sometimes the coloring on some manufacturers doesn't stand out that much. So always, if you're not sure, if you're not doing it often, you always take a quick reference. Make sure your hot is on the short guy. The long one's your neutral. So here's your black, there's your white. There's where our ground's going to wrap around. One thing with a receptacle, always make sure you screw in. They always come with all 4 screws out. Screw in the screws that you are not using. That is something that a lot of homeowners forget, or they just don't know. One less thing, you can see how far they stick out. That is hot inside your box the whole time. You don't need it sticking out and being more of a chance of it shorting out. This is bonded. You got a ground here. If that touches, you're going to pop the circuit. So get rid of those ones you're not using. So a little hint for those that maybe don't do it that often. Yeah, and make your ground wire longer than this. Do a better job than I did. So we gotta bend the ground. Where are we? There's Phillips. Always when putting a screw on, I almost went the opposite way and instantly caught myself because I knew it didn't look good. Always wrap it around clockwise, so it tightens as the screw comes down on it and doesn't loosen. If you go counterclockwise, it'll loosen and open up on you. That's what ensures that it's in nice and snug. And for receptacles, they have these little back push pins where if you want, you can just take that and push them in. I hate them. Do not use that. They can fall, they can be faulty. It's just a little tiny, 2 little metal clips that the wire just pushes in underneath and it bites it a bit. I've seen them fail. I've seen it where the wires just then go loose, or don't even mess around with them. I hate them. And if they do stick well and you want to take the receptacle or change something, you can't change anything. You're going to have to cut it. Well, now you got wire exposed. It's really tight. So I highly recommend do not use them. Take the extra few seconds, curl the wire, wrap it around wrap it around the screw. So again, quick look. We see that there's our neutral side. I'm just going to twist that so it's has this orientation that we want. Just like that. Hold a little bit of tension on it as you're tightening it down. There you go. It's always easier just to turn the wire with your pliers to get it how you want it rather than trying to fight with your fingers sometimes. It's just, it listens a little better. Like that. Make sure your insulation is out from the screw so it's not pinching down on the insulation. Let's grab the right screwdriver. Number 6 Robertson. And yes, I call Robertson sizing, as we do in the trades, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, not 0, 1, 2, and 3. An 8 is a 2 is an 8, or your red, and up and down from there. Green is a 6, black is a 10. So now, once we have that, take a quick look, make sure everything's on, our ground's on. So even if it was a bit short, we could finish it off. It just makes it a little tighter than versus sticking out, but not an issue. So again, our drywall's on. So now, put in the top and bottom screw to support it. Let's get them started. Come on, baby. There we go. It's easier when this is actually sturdy versus it being independent like this. There we go. Push and hold it. Now, when tightening these up, you don't want to go crazy tight, but you want it snug, because this is what's actually holding your receptacle. How many times have you seen a receptacle as you're pulling your appliances in and out, that it's loose and it's moving or it's shifting side to side? That's these 2 screws here. That's what holds it. It could be the box, but most times it's just the actual screws on the receptacle. So when tightening up, try and get it in the middle as best as you can. A little over to the side. If you're out by a little bit, it's not the end of the world. Straight up and down is more important. Because even just these tiny little things here will make it that much tougher. When you put on a cover plate and it's on a blank wall, you will see if it's a bit crooked. Terrible to do that. You want it nice and clean. So the most important, all pretty simple, couple of tricks there, but the most important things are the mounting of the box. If this box is a little bit kinked, if it's not exactly straight, if it's sticking out too far or in too far, now once the drywall's on and you finish it and you go to put your cover plate on, it's going to look terrible. That's what finishes the product nicely. The main thing is the mounting of the box, making sure it's just perfect. And then when you're putting this on, you can adjust it. So you want to do it just straight like that. Put the cover plate on. If for whatever reason it seems out of it, take the cover plate off. Take these off. Just adjust it a little bit. One thing you can do is if after the fact you realize the box is out just a little bit. Let's say that this side is in a little bit. Here's a trick that we use. Unscrew this and put 1 or 2 washers in behind it as you're tightening this on. That will then pop just one side out to help bring your receptacle so it's flush with the wall. Little trick. Sometimes, if depending on, because this is going to be on the outside of the drywall, sometimes what you can do is just bend these tabs a little bit. That pushes against the drywall, therefore pushing one end out. The only problem with that is they're not that strong. So once you're done, as you're tightening this, it's going to loosen over time. It's not, you can't tighten your bolt as well because you'll just flatten those wings. So I never did that. I prefer put something in behind it as a backing, like some washers, real tiny, small 1/4-inch washers, and 1 or 2 of them is probably all you'll need. If you need 2 or 3, no big deal. But now you can tighten it down. It's actually firm. Because you think of how many times you're pulling in and out a plug out of that receptacle. If it's not like tight against that wall, which now it's just sort of pressure fitting, it's going to loosen on you. So I hope that helps. Again, if it helped, throw me a subscribe and a like. And if you have any questions on or ideas on other things you'd like to see to help out for electricity around the home, let me know. And I'll answer your question or maybe even do a video on it. Awesome. Have a good day, guys.